Question 7. Joseph travels to work each day by train. The weekly cost of this train journey is £45. Joseph's weekly pay is £625. Work out 45 as a percentage of 625. So that's effectively saying what is 45 out of 625 as a percentage. If you have a fraction and you want to turn it into a percentage, then you first of all write the fraction and multiply it by 100. If you do that, you will get 7.2%. So 7.2% is 45 as a percentage of 625. Part B, the weekly cost of his train journey increases by 8%. So increases by 8%. 8% as a decimal is 0.08. Increases implies that we are going to gain. You always start off with 1 in terms of the whole journey, as the weekly cost of the train journey before anything happened. It represents 1 or 100%. So our decimal multiplier here is going to be 1.08. So we can take 1.08 multiplied by 45 to get 48.6, which in money terms we would have to write 2 decimal places, £48.60. Now there is another way of doing this. You could find 8% first of all. So 8% of 45, 45 divided by 100 times by 8, or 45 times by 0.08, however you choose to do it, you would get £3.60. And then in order to take into account the increases by, wrong pen, we would then add that to the 45 that we started with, and you end up with £48.60 that way. It's not as efficient and it's not as smooth as using decimal multipliers. That's really what you want to be doing in terms of any percentages, is trying to either get or use decimal multipliers. Is much quicker, and it also helps you with trickier problems. That's that. Part C, Joseph's weekly pay increases to 640. Calculate the percentage increase from 625 to 640. So again, there's more than one way of doing this. How I like to set up our decimal multiplier is to take the new amount and compare it with the old or the original amount. So in this case, 640 is what it increased to, and 625 was the original. So if we actually write 640 over 625, this is the decimal we get. Now the idea is that if we take 625 and multiply it by this decimal, that gives us 640, and the clue in this decimal is pretty much whatever you end up with. If you take away 1 from it, that will give you if you take your decimal, whatever it turns out to be, and find out the difference between it and 1, the decimal you end up with will give you the percentage. So in this case, taking away 1 gives us that as the decimal, which is 2.4%. And the fact that it's bigger than 1 means that we are gaining, we are increasing. So that aligns with the fact that we have a 1 point something. So 2.4% is our answer. Another way of doing this, if you do 640, take away 625, that gives you the profit, 15. And if you write 15 as a percentage of the original amount, and the original amount was 625, so we'd have 15 out of 625, you will end up with 0.024 that way. You cannot have this out of 640 because of the fact that 640 is the future amount, it's not the original. 625 is your original, therefore you must use that in terms of any fraction you set up for percentages there. Last but not least, part D, Joseph decides to cycle to work. He cycles 18 kilometers to work. He takes an hour and 20 minutes in order to do that, and the question's asking for his average speed in kilometers per hour. So, as it stands, we've been given time in a compound unit where we've got hours and minutes. We need to convert that into ideally hours because the answer requires it, but you can do this using minutes as well. I'll do both ways. So 1 hour and 20 minutes. If you convert the 20 into hours, you're going to divide it by 60. Will give you with 1.3 recurring hours. You could also write this as 4/3. either would be acceptable for your time being set up like that. Okay, once we have that, speed is distance over time, so we have our distance, which is 18, our time, which is either of these you plug in, will work fine. 4 over 3 is probably the easiest technically, but you've got to make sure you're careful with how you set up your fractions here. And if we complete that division, we're going to end up with 13.5 as our answer. If you change this to minutes instead, 1 hour being 60 minutes, so 60 plus 20 gives us 80 minutes. And then go through the motions with the same formula. This time it's 18 divided by 80. The thing you're going to end up with here is not kilometers per hour, because this was kilometers and because this was in minutes. Then when you do this sum, you're going to end up with 0.225. That is 0.225 kilometers per minute. And then if that's how many kilometers you get in a minute, you would need to multiply it by 60 in order to make it how many kilometers you travel in an hour. Either way, 13.5 is our answer. Done.